I think we'll go ahead and start with some introductions on our end. Thank you again for joining us today. We have not only Fivetran here, we also have Hashmap and Sherwin-Williams. I'll give Kelly and Richie some time to introduce themselves. I'm Candace Hunter, Enterprise Account Executive here at Fivetran, based in Houston, Texas, and really look forward to the conversation with Kelly and Richie today. So I'm going to hand it off to Kelly.
Hey, thanks, Candace. Good afternoon, everybody. Great to be here, have a chance to talk to you a little bit about data. Kelly Kohlleffel, I look after go-to-market for Hashmap. 4 years with Hashmap, 30 years in the data space. As I mentioned in the chat, today I'm in the College Station, Texas area, so looks like Paul Eibler and I are battling back and forth today. Hashmap, we are, for those of you that don't know or not familiar, we are consulting services in the data cloud space. We're also part of the NTT Data family of companies and joined NTT Data earlier this year. Basically, we help clients with really big data challenges across industries. Probably worked with 20 different industries and done roughly 300 or so projects in the last 3 or 4 years. So that's us in a nutshell. Richie, great to have you as well. Do you want to give a quick intro?
Sure, absolutely. First off, Kelly, thank you. Candace, thank you for having me today. And I'm Richie Bachala. I work for Sherwin-Williams. I manage our global data engineering team here at Sherwin-Williams. Our primary responsibility here at Sherwin is to provide data as a service that is easy to consume and secure, elastic, using primarily Snowflake and Azure in the cloud and various tools that go along with it. So I've been with Sherwin for about 10 years, and prior to Sherwin, I was in consulting with Hitachi, and even before that, I was at Oracle Corp doing product for a brief amount of time. So I've been within the data, middleware, and analytics space for about 15 years, and I'm happy to be here today with you guys.
Fantastic. Candace, anything else to set the stage before we want to get rolling?
Yeah, I just wanted to give everybody some insight into the agenda. Kelly and Richie are actually going to have some Q&A and discuss Richie's journey through, DataOps and actually modernization, those types of things. And then I'll give just a quick, quick couple of slides, insight into Fivetran and how we can help out with that as well.
That sounds good. Well, let's dig into it. And I guess I would just encourage everybody to, and Candace, you may have mentioned as well, but definitely pop some questions into the chat window as we're going through. Richie's going to cover some really interesting topics, some of the things that he's been working on at the Sherwin-Williams Company. So looking forward to hearing some of your questions along the way, and we'll try to take them here and there as we go through. So Richie, real quick, so you highlighted your background a little bit, your current role. I'd like to dig right in here. I know one thing that we wanted to discuss was DataOps. You've got DevOps with infrastructure teams. You've got MLOps in the AI data science space, DataOps with analytics and data teams. But kick it off for folks maybe that aren't familiar with what DataOps is. How do you think about it? How do you define it? How do you approach it in the context of data acquisition through to data transformation and integration?
Well, a heavy question to start off with there, Kelly, but I guess we'll jump right into it. Maybe a little bit more background before we, address DataOps, because it's relatively a new term and that's been thrown around a little bit in the last year or so, right? Essentially, traditional BI, right, traditional data and analytics now, from what BI used to be, came from, the need for going to source databases of large normalized databases, building this middle semantic layer for so-called data models, and then having that available to your front-end BI layer of visualizations that we currently have. And that evolved as time went on, especially in the last 10 years where data became abundant. And those source databases have become a lot more complex and a lot more in size and volume that you're dealing with moving data. And then building that middle semantic layer has been a challenge for majority of the use cases, and you needed to be a lot more creative about it. And that's where the whole, evolution of cloud and Snowflake within that space became so relevant. So in short, DataOps from that, history is basically automation of a lot of that, a lot of building smart data pipelines, building multiple data sources with various origins and various types of sources, and ingesting them in a more automated and available monitoring ways into either data lakes or data warehouses, cloud data warehouses, or various storage facilities is where it came up. And there is so many features within DataOps that, you could talk about. DataOps serving, analytic user base for serving data science initiatives, for serving, data as a service initiatives. So a lot of tools fall into that picture. And I think a lot of people have a little bit of different variations. So it kind of works a little hand in hand with what data engineering does from past, where, data warehousing concepts are still relevant, and building that ETL pipelines is kind of where I think it's more concentrated.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. We're going to be talking a little bit about Fivetran today for sure, and how you guys are using it at the Sherwin-Williams Company. But what you mentioned, that in the data ops space, there's a lot of tool choices and options out there. Anything that like top 2 or 3 that maybe we should keep our eye on out there that are really starting to bubble to the surface in the data ops space?
Okay. That's tools are a very dangerous realm, right?
I'll do this because I don't want to put you on the spot on that. So when I think DataOps, a lot of times I think of solutions like DBT, for instance. That's what, to me, that's what comes to mind. Analytics engineering, DataOps. I'm going to be really, I'm going to be doing some modeling with my data. I'm going to be doing some, in leveraging best practices, some lineage, those types of things. To me, is that accurate, or is that not correct in terms of the type of solution?
Really, actually, in a nutshell, right? DataOps is basically enabling ETL as a self-service utility, right? It's the ability to find, move, consolidate, and annotate data, right, on a more self-service fashion, which is not core to just the data engineering division of your enterprise, but also extended. So I think that's where majority of the conceptual conversation starts, where DataOps comes, and it moves into more topics like monitoring data in motion. How are you moving data, and what is the capability of moving data? Because your source databases and source data sources are always changing. So maybe somebody added a column. Do you need to manually change your data pipeline, or the smart pipeline that exists manages those changes of adding an additional column, or changes in data types? So I think it's a very, very conceptual topic right now, as how you would, discover and automatically handle source data changes is where, like, a lot of this, conceptual topics go in. But and to your point, Fivetran does, fall into some part of it because it is automated data integration, right? As a tool. So what you are doing is you're not worried about. You're saying, okay, I have a SaaS application that is on the cloud. I have the API key to where I can access their data storage, and I need this data in my target, say, Snowflake data warehouse, virtual data warehouse on X frequency. So every 6 hours, every 2 hours, near real time. You want it to be refreshed, and you have, say, in your source data source, you have 170 tables, and you want to build a data model on top of that within your Snowflake environment. You're not the one writing each and every mapping using an ETL tool, whatever ETL tool that is, at ETL, ELT. There are multiple tools that are there in that spectrum, but you still are not managing end-to-end integration. You're managing the service that is bringing that data from the source system, either using APIs or microservices as an infrastructure, or as architecture bus, whatever technology that is relevant for that particular SaaS application. You are pawning that off to a service like Fivetran to manage that for you. And that is an automated data pipeline, which is kind of a smart pipeline, what I would still call it, right? So it does fit into the picture in that aspect for sure, but I'm sure, there's other use cases and utilities as well.
Yeah, no, that is really interesting. When you were talking, I was thinking, one of the key features that we love about Fivetran is the automated schema migration, where like you said, there's not a lot that needs to be done. I think you called it, which again, another term I really like, those smart pipelines. Do you feel like that schema migration capability that Fivetran has, which is pretty unique actually, that falls into the DataOps space?
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. And I think it is more recently, I think Gartner coined this term. They're really good at coming up with terminology, but it is called data drift. So it is the unpredictable, unannounced, and unending mutation of your data, right? Like the characteristic of your data that is constantly changing. So you have, per se, Salesforce, or you have, per se, any of these SaaS providers, and they are constantly releasing new features, and which means their core normalized data, or like there's SoQL, like how Salesforce manages their data sets today, right, is constantly changing. But you don't have to keep up with those changing data types, right? So I think what it meant was the unpredictable and unannounced mutation of your data characteristics is managed by such a solution, is what we all want to lead towards. But really, there is no solution that is 100% that fits that definition, but you are working towards it as we evolve.
Yeah, no, that's good. And you threw out data drift in there. I was just going to throw out a question, everybody, on who's familiar with that, because I've heard that used, and you were talking about it in the context of I think some of the structured data sets. I've heard it also used a lot in the context of real-time data and event-driven data type data ingestion and acquisition. Really interesting. And I think it's a challenge when you look at data drift. I think what you're implying and what you're saying is that data drift can happen anytime after this initial acquisition phase, and things can break. They can get they can not be as usable, I guess, somewhere after that acquisition process. So I feel like it's a huge challenge to me. It speaks to data quality as well. If I've got a lot of data drift, my data quality is going to be really challenged, right?
Right. I mean, that is, you have to keep up with your source systems, and there is no reason. Like, I have a large team, right? At Sherwin-Williams, we cover a lot of countries where our data is sourced from, and I have a team out in Malaysia that manages our APAC and ANZ user bases data needs, and similarly LATAM, EMEA, and here in the US, couple of locations. All of these engineers consistently to keep talking with each other and to manage the source system changes. It's a lot of effort from basically your SDLC lifecycle of any data engineering project. So anything that we could do to decrease that amount of engineering or development needed will impact our acceleration and our time to market, right? And which is what it is all about. Everybody wants their data like today and right now. And how do we make that more faster and quicker is what we are constantly looking at solutions for. And cloud enables us, right? Cloud has solved majority of our problems that historically that we would spend with performance tunings, with consistently managing the source systems. So I think the big issue with volume and variety and velocity and questions like that have been addressed by the cloud in general, and we want to keep the engineers working on more business-based solutions than just maintenance of existing pipelines. And I think that's the business that we don't want to be in, because if that is the case, for the 11,000 user base I have, I need a pretty percentage of that number in my engineering base, right? So which is not what we are. So the team is still like 20 odd something. There is no way we would be able to manage that level of a user base if we are not consistently looking at managing data models instead of managing ETL.
Yeah. Gosh, so you mentioned some of the worldwide locations you have globally, but the entire user base that you're supporting right now from a data and analytics standpoint is 11,000.
Yeah, I mean, who are consuming our data as a service from various platforms is about, it's about that number. So it's quite much out there.
Yeah. So with that, I know that I mean, we talked a little bit on DataOps, data drift, et cetera, but you've got. I think of sometimes, especially for a company that's established like the Sherwin-Williams Company, you've got obviously a lot of legacy systems out there, legacy data sources, and I have to believe that there's been a lot of processes put in place over the years around scheduling, automation, monitoring, et cetera. Talk to me today about where you are in the process with you and your team. How are you maybe you're taking a traditional approach, maybe you're taking a more modern approach towards automating and monitoring your data loads. How's that working today? Yeah. What would you recommend for everyone listening?
Okay. I think that I'll take that question as a two-parts question then, I guess, right? So, what the core roles and responsibilities of my team here are, and then and what we are moving towards, how we are future-proofing. So I'll address in that two phases. The first phase is if anyone comes and asks me about what do you guys do, I mean, I kind of define that into three verticals, right, just to maintain sanity, right? So the first vertical obviously is the movement piece of the data movement piece, the wrangling, the ingestion and transformation of our source data, structured, semi-structured. Sometimes now we are into even trying out unstructured data here because Snowflake's recent unstructured data capability that they've announced, and my team was one of the early adopters of using unstructured data within Snowflake and Azure. So that is addressed by that ETL aspect is addressed by building those data pipelines that we're talking about. And those are multiple tools. We have multiple tools, on-prem tools that fall in that spectrum. And also there are very cloud-based tools as well. And Fivetran is a great example which helps us manage those SaaS to SaaS data ingestion within the data ingestion space specifically. For transformation, there are other tools that we use, which are like heavily ETL dependent, and but Fivetran really fits well from SaaS, some of our SaaS sources into Snowflake. And then the second vertical is about building enterprise data warehouses and data modeling and building that semantic layer that enables us to make our data more accessible and readable and certified for our user base, so they could build their own reports and dashboards and whatever they need to consume it wise, right? Sometimes they connect via Tableau Data Prep, and sometimes it's Tableau, or sometimes it's another BI tool, but they want an extract for another application, whatever that is in the enterprise data warehousing and data modeling vertical. And the third vertical and the last one is about our cloud migration journey, our modernization of our stack, and future-proofing our architecture as where we are going, right? I think in 2018, and I use this example all the time, we spent about over 3,100 hours in development hours of human development hours that year within my team and another DBA team, just performance tuning, it just scaling up our warehouses that are on-prem and that are on our in our data center. And not going to go into that stack and the specific of which technology, but we spend that much time because it is brick and mortar. It had to be maintained and managed as we are seeing not phenomenal, but then pretty significant growth, multiplied growth in our volume of our transactional data and whatever data that's coming through, right? So for addressing such things, and just to make sure that we are on the right track, we need to invest in more time into our journey into the cloud, our architecture review of building pipelines that are sustainable instead of wasting time on maintenance and administration. So that's 3 tiers. And then coming back to your question as how are you guys looking to the future? What are you guys doing to the future? I mean, technology does serve a lot of the problems and helps us address a lot of those questions. But I think our role within the organization is serve our end users, our customer base, and our customer base are all internal users. And our users are pretty sophisticated. They know SQL, so which makes our life easy because we don't have to have hundreds of people supporting them. So it's by the end of the day, it's basically helping them access their data more faster and then aiding and assisting them. We're not doing their work. We want to lead them to the path what they could get to. So because at the end of the day, it's not just about data, or it's not about analytics. It's not even about insights, right? It is about the impact which comes from all of it. And that impact is sometimes it is a change in behavior, sometimes it is a change in a metric, and we want to make sure there is something that we can achieve and it is sustainable. So especially within the space, the rate of change is so rapid that we have to be a consistently learning organization, and that's what I lean towards, aiding and leading my team into. And but it's also an exciting time to be in data analytics. So that's what I would say. Tools are great, cloud is great, but the focus is always on our customer.
And that's really well said. And I think that, that's something that we should be striving for and really chasing every day, is that time to impact, time to value that you talk about, much more so than, hey, let's use a technology or let's drive a particular insight. What impact are we having as data teams out there? Hey, Richie, I want to go into a little bit more. So you talked about the fact that you guys are leveraging Fivetran today. Talk a little bit about how you're using it, and maybe if you could specifically, what types of Fivetran connect? Fivetran's got, 200 plus connectors across databases and a number of different enterprise applications, service. 200 plus of these. Where are you guys using them today? What are some of the patterns and outcomes and impact that you're looking to drive with Fivetran? Be interested in hearing about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We are very cautious about adding many tools within our stack that we need to, because we are a very we're a 150-year-old organization. There's a lot in our stack, and there is a lot of ERPs. There's a lot of solutions, even on the BI front and also on the middleware front. And I know, because I came from Oracle doing it middleware, and I spent 6 years in Latin America, being that middleware guy. But what we are using Fivetran is mostly what its strengths are. Its strengths is where we don't have to be involved in managing. Say, for example, right, Coupa, for example, is a SaaS application. We have ServiceNow, and we're looking at similar SaaS applications that have API-based data integration capabilities that we can access as a service from Fivetran. That way, we are not are in the business of building each and every one of the source table that is or an API call that is on the source SaaS table into our warehouse. And for all purposes, we are using Fivetran only for Snowflake as our target, and to bring that into the target. So to give a little bit more of an understanding for I'm not going to go into specifics of the source systems, but this one SaaS product that we have, it has about 160 tables that we wanted to get in order to give certain, procurement related, data sets available for our business. So when we needed to do that, so the standard data engineering project comes up as we spend this much time doing ETL, bringing all the raw data into our staging area. And once the staging area is there, then we build a data model on top of it. Once the data model is out on there, then we build Tableau data sources. And once the Tableau data sources are built, then we publish them onto our Tableau server, and they will now be accessible for building dashboards or reports or whatever extracts that need to be generated, so our end users can consume. So that's basically the entire life cycle of a data engineering, data analytics project. So the ETL component to bring 160 tables is pretty sizable, right? So for any data and analytics project, about 85% of the work is on data engineering before the data even becomes consumable, right? So you bring the ETL, you write the ETL, you bring it into the staging raw area, and then you build a data model. That's pretty sizable. That comes out to be 80+%, and I'm not really generalizing it, but it's true for majority of the operational reporting projects that we have in any billion-dollar companies that we talk about. And the rest, 10 to 15%, is where the users are actually getting in, where you are communicating and having them interact with it, and that's where the real beauty of it is, right? That's where the value of everything that they want. So we want to decrease this 85% to as little as we want, right? And that's where the ETL component of that, if you want to put some percentages for this particular use case we're talking about, the ETL component of it, that is about like 60%. So the fact that we could take that 60% away, plug it into Fivetran, within a day, I have those 160 tables in Snowflake, and we can start building a data model on top of that. The next immediate day is huge, right? And we do that. And we're looking for use cases like that where Fivetran can consistently help us, right? And even with that building the data model, we go back to, there are multiple free resources. And actually there is this company called Limpack or something that's out there where you pay $600 and they have multiple toolkits that you have available where you can use and reuse some of those views that have been created for other companies instead of don't need to recreate the data model from scratch, but you can use available toolkits. And even Tableau has a lot of those toolkits. So we consistently are looking for acceleration in every stage of our data analytics project by looking at somebody who did it before. We don't want to recreate the wheel, and that's how we came about to Fivetran, because we didn't want to recreate the wheel and redo all of these ETL mappings one by one in an ETL tool for integration and ingestion, but instead subscribe to Fivetran, pay your subscription, tell your frequency, and you're ready to go. Have your API key ready for your source and target, and the data gets synced up manually. And if there are any issues, it comes up in your monitoring utility, like the logs that get generated. You can either have that delivered via email or otherwise. So that's how we came about with Fivetran as we're used today.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I love how you talked about shifting that burden or that larger percentage of work to really where are those users interacting with the data versus having to spend all that time on the ETL pipelines. I know I was working with a client on using Fivetran for Salesforce integration. It's I guess the most widely used CRM sales system out there, and to me, it's what you talked about. It's the little things that Fivetran does in the background that you don't even have to think about. For instance, on Salesforce, they are going to optimize for the fewest API. You were talking about interacting with API. They're going to optimize for the fewest API calls. Why? Because I've got a quota with Salesforce, right, on my API calls that I can only do a certain amount. And when Fivetran sees that you're getting close to that, right around that 90% mark, they'll shut it down. They'll catch up the next day. Those are the kind of things that take a lot of effort, a lot of work, potentially can break things and start that whole process of data drift like you talked about earlier. And those are the types of things that I just want to set it and forget it and not have to deal with, right?
Right. So in reality, you still have to administer it. You still have to have an oversight, but in reality, it is going from 100% to 10 to 15% of administration. And there has to be some level of ownership by the end of the day by the core enterprises data engineering team. I think that partnership is always going to be there. So yeah, and I agree with you. We are here to serve our business, and then we are not technology companies by the end of the day. So although it might be fun for us to continue to do that and build those, but at some point you gotta delegate.
Yeah, absolutely. I want more Sherwin-Williams paint colors. That's what I want you guys to give us. Hey, let me ask you this. Now, great conversation. Talking about maybe some advice that you could give to some of the companies that are listening in today, and it's been tough maybe to quickly scale or gain some of these efficiencies like you were talking about, and really get to that data-driven mindset and culture. Any advice that you'd like to give to those types of organizations?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question and too much of an open-ended question, but I'll try. So I think one philosophy, besides keeping the customer in understanding and knowing your customer in the driving seat, what I would say is, it's very important to decrease your time to market for everyone, right? Everybody's on there, two things. Every organization is on two journeys. What is their data analytics journey, and how are they working towards making that better? And what's their digital transformation journey? Everyone, if they want to survive 2021 right now, a post-COVID world that we're living in, is making that a priority. And in order to really, accelerate those journeys, what you have to do is look at options that are out there in the market. There are other companies, there are other similar enterprises that are going through the same journey talk to each other. I would recommend that. I would, build a community because there are multiple accelerators in the market and they're not always well thought about. And it is usually sometimes SI partners like Hashmap or like, a few other partners that are there in the market who actually enable those accelerators to help you, because they come in, we have a certain financial module, we want to do an implementation for this one particular data set. They've done it for 3 other companies. So use that code, reuse that code for the acceleration, and then reuse the data model. Because, no matter how much we go to the cloud, you can throw much compute and then say, I fixed the performance issue. But a good data model, a good dimensional model is always wonderful. And it is expensive to maintain because it is expensive to develop. So if you already have that, don't throw them away. So I think those are a couple of things I would say from the tech side. But and I would go back to the earlier thing. It's very important for an enterprise of any scale, any size to be a learning organization, because this space is changing so rapidly, and every 3 months somebody's getting acquired by somebody else, or some new feature is coming up which is making everything redundant. So it's kind of really important to be plugged in into the community and into the industry as well.
Oh, great. Really, really interesting. Hey, let me ask you last question here that I'd love to get to some from the audience that's listening in. So take me back to your maybe a little bit younger, little yet less experienced self when you started at Sherwin-Williams. Anything that you wish you knew then that you would have applied day one when you started instead of waiting for today, for instance?
Oh, wow. A lot, I guess. You fail and you learn, right? So, our journey into the cloud is an interesting story, and we had certain. Well, let me take that back. Actually, my journey here at Sherwin-Williams, I think in the first 5-6 years, I basically did Latin America implementation. So we traveled mostly around Latin America, and after an acquisition, we made sure me and the team that I was working with, we made sure that the localized transactional data is synced up into corporate on a daily basis, because post acquisition you have a lot of source systems there, and synced up on a nightly basis. So there is visibility and transparency of what's going on at the ground level with all of these new acquisitions. So that's how I started the journey, and that's been a phenomenal ride, and got me the opportunity to travel most of Latin America and be able to do some great work and meet some amazing people. So definitely I enjoyed that time. And then for last 6 years I've been here or 5-6 years I've been with the org. I was in this data analytics space, and originally when I started, we were talking about traditional BI tools, right? And how we still had thousands of users, not as big of a user base as it is today, but we still had that. But we are managing everything from on-prem tools. And then we looked at cloud, but we didn't really look at cloud because it wasn't ready. We didn't really know about it. But by the time we really realized the value and the strength of what cloud can offer, it was we were a little behind the market, I would say. But I wish we started those conversations a lot sooner. But I think one of the big things that Snowflake provides the ability to access JSON, Avro Parquet, and XML files without really writing ETL. I mean, that kind of open our eyes up. And after spending 3,000 hours that 1 year, when I went back and did an audit as how much we spent, that was way too late for us to realize that we have to have a more sustainable and scalable solution. So it would have been a lot better if we would have saw that 2 quarters and instead end of the whole year. So but we're making strides. We're making great progress in there, and our ability to scale out is working out, and we have a lot of partners who are helping in our journey. So it's really important to have those partnerships, I would say.
Very, very cool. Interesting stuff. Really appreciate the insights. Let's do this. Let's take a pause. Let me throw it over to Candace. Candace, any questions for Richie that are coming in that we may want to throw out to him?
Yes, I have one from the chat. It says, how is Sherwin-Williams thinking through technical debt and how to efficiently go about moving towards more of a cloud-based warehouse and all of the benefits that come with it?
Oh, technical technical debt is a big conversation, and I think I usually don't participate in conversations like that within our enterprise. I'm sure, but because I think the way you have to look at it is, especially with the modernization and with the advent of the cloud, the conversation should be about your sustained business value instead of your total cost of ownership or the return on ROIs, because a lot of these equations and terminologies that are used really in terms of traditional infrastructure, that is brick and mortar, that you have physical boxes and you know what you're spending on. What is it going to be? What is the maximum? You can put a maximum value, right? But with the cloud, you don't know. You could spend $1 million, you can spend $10,000, or you can spend like nothing, right? That range is wide. And what's more important is having the governance rule in order to really know what your spend is on compute. But there are sometimes you find great values in the smallest places that you're not looking for. So I don't really talk about technical debt about cloud. It is a completely different conversation, because Azure is taken as a separate intake, and that's managed by a cloud COE within the organization, within the enterprise, and I'm a partner. We are stakeholders in that, but that decision has already been made, and we work through that. And then same thing when Snowflake came into it, we looked and evaluated Redshift and BigQuery, and looking at our infrastructure, we went with what made sense for our infrastructure and for our environment, which was Snowflake, considering where we were in our journey. So, but the decision was made on multiple factors. And I think if you can Google me, and I think you Richie Bachala, Snowflake, Redshift, and BigQuery, it'll show you the various categories that we looked at: the hybrid architecture, the pricing models, and the number of customers, and all the things that we took into consideration as why we went with Snowflake. It kind of maybe help answer that question as what was our thinking, but that is like the summary of months of work that we did. And been asked that question so many times, I thought it should be a blog post instead. So that's out there on Medium if you want.
Yeah, no, that's great, Richie. And Candace, I was going to mention too, I mean, when you think about tech debt that can, especially in some of the companies that have been around for a while, Richie mentioned, I think Sherwin-Williams 100 plus years. I mean, it can get a little bit overwhelming when you think about all the process as well as all the skills that have been built up. And I would say try to avoid getting overwhelmed by thinking you've got to tackle it all at once. Richie talked about earlier, pick out a key data source, pick out a key application where that impact can be made, and just start there. Can I eliminate some percentage of that technical debt? Maybe automating my ServiceNow data set or my Salesforce data set or Coupa data set or whatever it may be, and then work from there. And I think that'll avoid you getting that overwhelming feeling, oh man, I'll never get this done, right?
All right.
Well, good stuff. Any further
Candace,
questions?
anything else?
Well, I was just looking. Is there any other further questions from the attendees? Feel free to put it in the chat on the right-hand side. And what I can do is I can go ahead and go into my presentation and give people a time to put the questions in the chat if they do have any. I mean, to be honest, I don't know how to come on after you guys, because you guys set me up so perfectly and basically talked about all the benefits of Fivetran as it relates to modernizing and like you said, just kind of taking that next step to the cloud. So I just have a few slides. I'm not going to go through every single word on these slides, but I know we talked about a lot of different market shifts. The one that I'll be talking about today is, and Richie and Kelly both spoke about this, the ETL to the ELT kind of shift. And the reason that this shift is happening, and this was discussed many different times, is because of lack of automation, the brittle pipelines, data engineers spending too much time on just troubleshooting and maintaining pipelines rather than actually maximizing the data and maximizing those revenue generating projects. A lot of the key data is not usable. Maybe you can't get it into, maybe it's siloed, maybe you can't get it into that cloud data warehouse or where you need it. And that leads to delayed opportunities, decisions, and those kind of business outcomes that really affect the bottom line. So a little bit about Fivetran's ELT approach. I know it's said a couple different times, but just kind of want to reiterate the just 4 different pieces. We're ready out of the box. You essentially have everything right at your fingertips. You put your credentials in for the source and destination, and you're ready to move data within minutes. Automation. I know Kelly mentioned this, and Richie mentioned this. Schema migrations, huge time saver. API updates as well. We're able to recognize those, seeing the incremental changes and bringing those little incremental changes in rather than a full update really makes a big difference. SaaS-based offering. The fact that we handle everything in the background for you. We do the updates. We handle the infrastructure in the background. We replicate your data. Everything is already basically ready for you when you use it. Built for the cloud. You'll see a lot of these different buzzwords, not only for Snowflake, but also other cloud solutions. It's very agile. It's very scalable. And the fact that we have 170 plus connectors, Kelly, I think, was adding the ones that we have in private preview as well. So we have about 200, connectors that are readily available for you. And just a note, if you don't see a connector you need on our website, that doesn't mean we can't connect to it. You can actually put an API at the beginning of some of our connectors, and then we'll manage the background for you. That being said, kind of want to just show you very quickly how simple it is. Just put in your credentials. For Salesforce, essentially, it'll show your schema. You click which ones you want to bring over, and then we start syncing your data. It is that simple. Okay, and just a little bit about the company. We have over 530 plus employees. We are located throughout the world. We have major offices in California and Colorado, but also India and Ireland, Australia, and Denver. In Denmark. So we do have 24/7 support. We have, biggest thing about it, we have free trials if you want to check us out. You're more than welcome to go not only to, I know that Richie mentioned Snowflake, we have a Partner Connect. Just go to that little button, and you only have to hook up your connectors because your Snowflake credentials are already in there. So very, very easy. More than happy to answer any questions regarding either Fivetran or also what Kelly and Richie mentioned during the presentation. So feel free to put it in the chat if you have any questions.
Yeah, Candace, I was going to throw into, you mentioned how simple it is. Richie talked about it. I think, Fivetran is one of those data integrations, spend an hour with us, grab a cup of coffee, and let's connect up Fivetran to Snowflake or another cloud data warehouse and show you how easy it is to get data flowing through to, say, a Tableau report. It's like an hour process to, kind of show you end to end. Very, very simple, straightforward, and a lot of fun to use.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing about Fivetran, whether it's Fivetran, whether it's Snowflake, and thinking about right outside the box of on-premise thinking versus SaaS-based cloud thinking. There are a lot of things you can do with Fivetran it's not possible with that on-premise technology, just like with Snowflake. For instance, nobody has ever been able to just move data very quickly. You've always had to just drag and drop and look in the GUI and make the relationships, and it was just, basically, they were giving you all the pieces and the instructions, but you had to put everything together. So this is a new way of thinking, a new way of thinking, hey, I don't have to do all of these little bitty administration and maintenance of these pipelines, and I don't have to handle all that. What I need to handle is what's valuable, and that's the actual data and manipulating the data after it lands in the cloud data warehouse and gaining those insights. Okay, we did have a question that's submitted. How do you justify the benefit of using dbt for model transformation versus add-on feature that comes with BI tools? That's a good one.
I can take that.
Okay.
So, BI tools, like the core principles that we follow, that any data and analytics leader would say is you got to get your logic off of your front end. You got to maintain all of that. Transformation, when you say transformation, so there's a difference. Ingestion and transformation are two main parts of any ETL, ELT process for data analytics project. So when you say transformation, it is massaging of your data, essentially, right? Hey, I have these 3 tables here. I'm trying to build it into a fact table by bringing X components into it. And how do you do that? In 10 years, 15 years ago, you write a PL SQL script, right? Or you write some VB script, some kind of a script that you write. You write a cursor, you go through loops, and then you bring that a particular ID, and then you generate that particular validation and then that fact table that you want, right? Going back into the dimensional modeling days. That's what you do. Going into the 2000s, when we have ETL tools, which you can launch off similar scripts off of your ETL tool, or write mappings and write packages within the ETL tool to do the same thing. You don't need to physically write a 3,000 line piece of code for building a loop, but you write you create a package, which is a lot more easier and more GUI based than writing a whole big script. They should, in my opinion, there should never be a transformation layer on BI tools. They can be filters, they can be prompts, they can be analysis work, which is basically advanced queries that you're running off of it. But transformation on a BI tool is a no-no, right? Tableau addresses that as part of a data prep, which is a massaging layer, and it is really not an ETL tool. It is enabling users to take 2 or 3 spreadsheets and putting some filters and making it a little bit more advanced way of moving and massaging, wrangling data. It's more wrangling data. It's not transformation. Transformation is all script-based, and it all needs to rightly belong in the ETL layer or within the warehouse or your storage layer. So now, the premise of the question is, how do you justify the benefit of DBT with transformation being done on BI tools? You should not do transformation in your BI tools. You should do filters. You should do levels. Your BI tool should only extract and be able to present the data, not do the whole ETL stack. So that is a foundational question that I'd say I differ. And then coming back to the DBT, yes, your ETL tool like a DBT or maybe another tool, right? Like where you are using building transformation, I think I would recommend to keep that. So engineers can be engineers and they can help maintain that. And because the analyst leaves and all this logic is left in the BI tool, in the BI report or a dashboard, which will not really serve your business. So I think that's a governance process issue too.
Yeah, I was going to say, Richie, just those are great points. And also as it relates to DBT, so there really shouldn't be too many gates there. I mean, you've got an open source tool, number one, community supported and based from the team at Fishtown. So, you can jump in with no cost, get rolling. Shouldn't be any issues there at all, I wouldn't think. And then you've also got there's a DBT fundamentals training class that's provided as well. That spend a week on that, and you will probably be, if you've got SQL skills, you'll probably be pretty proficient on DBT pretty quickly. So again, fantastic compliment to Fivetran. Last thing I'll mention on that, Fivetran has also created a number of DBT packages that you ought to check out on the Fivetran site. I don't know, Marta could probably link it up in the chat if you haven't seen those yet, but some really interesting DBT out-of-the-box transformation packages that work really, really well with Fivetran.
Sorry, I was actually looking for that. I just put the link if you want to check out some of the packages that we have with DBT and Fivetran. And as a quick reminder, these are free packages. We don't charge for these. But we're more than happy to answer any questions. Like we mentioned, after this, whether it's me, Kelly, Richie, I'll give everybody one last time to put questions in the chat box if you have any. Oh, there's a blog as well that Marta put in there about DBT.
I'll throw in a DBT site as well, and while I'm at it, Fivetran 2, boom. There's a couple of other URLs to check out. Oh, why not just make it the dream team? There we go. Boom. I think I got asked that question last time. Hey, what's your dream team modern tech stack? Well, DBT, Fivetran, Snowflake really work. Those all work really well.
And I will tell you, if you haven't checked out the Hashmap website, they have some incredible blogs. They have some incredible podcasts. Just a lot of just really great knowledge that's helpful. Whether you're doing a modernization to the cloud, whether you're trying to figure out about cloud data warehouses or integration solutions, or migrating your data, Kelly can help. He has a wealth of knowledge.
And we actually had George Fraser, your CEO, on the show maybe a month or so ago. And then I know, Richie, you were on the show a while back too. So yeah, just search in there, and some great, I just think great learnings, great education, and just a wonderful place to kind of grow your knowledge from a community standpoint.
I agree. Well, I don't see any further questions, but I did want to thank everybody for coming today. As Martin mentioned, we'll be sending a follow-up email. It'll have the recording as well as some content as well. Like we said before, if you do have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to assist you with anything. But I do want to thank Kelly as well as Richie for just killing it today with that Q&A session. It was really knowledgeable and really helpful to everybody.
Thank you.
A lot of fun, Candace. Thank you, Richie. Great time as always. Thanks, Marta. Thanks, Candace.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. All right. Bye-bye.